Hello there. Welcome to this episode of Force Ghost Conversations. This is your host, Anthony King, and this week I'm going to discuss the second episode from the book of Boba Fett titled The Tribes of Tatooine. Before we get started, I'm inviting you to join the conversation with us. We can be found on Twitter at Force Ghost Pod. You can follow our page on Facebook, and you can even follow us now on Instagram at Force Ghost Conversations. We look forward to connecting with you on those platforms. Also, please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your listening site of choice. And without further ado, it is time to gather around the campfire for some Force Ghost conversations. Okay, everyone, welcome back. And before we get into our spoiler discussion of the Book of Boba Fett, Episode 2, we're going to go into our segment appropriately dubbed Cloud City Gossip, where we talk about all the news and late-breaking announcements that have come out in the world of Star Wars over the past week, just to keep you all up to date with all the things that are happening in a galaxy far, far away. And to start, as I've been noting in my recent episodes, this past week celebrated the 1-year anniversary of the High Republic. This expansive era of Star Wars storytelling has been nothing short of epic. And this week, the latest adult novel in the series, The Fallen Star by Claudia Gray, was released. In addition, the High Republic show Anniversary Special unveiled a litany of new information to tease the next phase of High Republic stories. From that show, we learned the following updates. First, Phase 2 of the High Republic has been officially dubbed Quest of the Jedi. It will also take place 150 years prior to the stories of Phase 1. So in total then, for those keeping track at home, that number means it is about 350 years before the events of Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. And then the first wave of these new books and comics will debut in October 2022, which will allow you all plenty of time to get caught up if you haven't already. I cannot recommend these stories enough. They're fantastic. There's something for every age and interest level, whether you're into comics, young adult novels. If you got a kid at home that's in 5th, 6th, or 7th grade, they have some middle grade readers, and for the adults at home, they have the main adult series line. So be sure to go pick up. I would recommend starting with Light of the Jedi, since that theoretically kicks off the High Republic storytelling. So go check that out in the next couple of months and get ready for Phase 2 coming out in October 2022. But we've got some little bit of news in regards to what will be coming out in October of 2022. So Cavan Scott will continue to write the flagship Marvel comic line for the High Republic. Charles Soule will flesh out Porter Engle's backstory in a separate Marvel comic run. Daniel Jose Older will write an all-ages original graphic novel for Star Wars The High Republic Adventures through Dark Horse Comics, which I'm very excited that it's back in the fold here. And while the other authors remained quiet for their upcoming projects, they teased that you should be cautious as to which characters you get attached to, as some will not survive. So just keep that in mind when you're going through this, that anything is on the table at this point. So that's something to keep in mind as you're going through these stories. And then finally, some new authors are joining the bullpen of the High Republic authors, and these include Zoraida Cordova, George Mann, Tessa Gratton, and Lydia Kang. And they will be continuing to flesh out new stories among this expansive era of the Star Wars universe. So we welcome them to the High Republic era, and I'm very excited to read their works in the coming months. Finally, again, as a friendly reminder, the Book of Boba Fett is premiering new episodes each Wednesday on Disney+. Be sure to check those out and support this new Star Wars content. And then come over here to Force Ghost Conversations as we will break down the entire season. So after this break, we're going into our spoiler discussion of Episode 2 for the Book of Boba Fett. We'll be right back. Okay, ladies and gents, we are back for our spoiler discussion of episode 2 of the Book of Boba Fett. So that means everything and anything is on the table to talk about here. So if you have not seen the episode, I implore you to go check it out and then come back to this podcast. And then, so you don't get spoiled to any of the amazing reveals, the story beats, the canon moments that will take place throughout the course of this episode. Just don't let this podcast spoil it for you. Don't let me be that person. Go check out the episode, then come back here and listen to it, because this is a great episode. Spoilers on my thoughts here. I loved it. This is really just an amazing piece of Star Wars storytelling. I'm thrilled that this is part of the Star Wars canon right now. I'm just only going to talk about great things about this episode, and there's a lot to discuss here. So let's just get right into it here. The title of the episode is called The Tribes of Tatooine. It is directed by Steph Green and written by Jon Favreau. And my first question here that I just wanted to talk out loud and workshop with you all is, what does that title mean? Frankly, when you watch the episode, there are, of course, the two concurrent storylines. There's the one set in kind of what you would call the present day at the time of the story. And then, of course, there's the flashbacks that are taking place where it's Boba primarily taking his role with this Tusken leadership group. And he's learning about the various ways that the order of everything works in Tatooine. So in the current timeline, right, as he's become the daimyo of Jabba's palace, and he's laid claim to Tatooine as his region. He's exposed to a bit of the tribal nature of it all, and then the various players in this quote unquote Game of Thrones of the Tatooine underground sphere, right? So you have the mayor's office that is a little bit here. You have Garsa Fwip controlling her restaurant, whatever you want to call that over there, her club. You have the twins, the Hutt twins, that are now laying their claim to Jabba's bequest, and Boba as well. So it's just interesting to see that there are all these different units and groups kind of playing against each other. I'm very excited to see where this goes, if it's going to take place like a Godfather-esque story. But that's just one aspect of this. And of course, there's the concurrent storyline that takes place in the past that's with Boba and his time with the Tusken Raider group. And he's learning about that tribe and the various tribes of Tusken culture. But he's also at the same time fighting this group that, of pike syndicates that are, laying claim to their land, right? The Dune Sea. They're traveling across it, traversing spice across the Dune Sea to their buyers. And you have all these clubs laying claim to something, and they believe it's theirs, and they're not seeing the other perspective. And of course, it just depends on what side you're on, which you're probably going to lean towards. So that's just very fascinating. I'm very interested to see where this plays out, right? Because the first episode was Stranger in a Strange Land, and that totally makes sense now, because it's just Boba being a stranger in these situations that he's put into, right? It's Boba being a part of this Tusken Raider group, and it's Boba being the daimyo, right? He's a stranger in these situations that and positions that he's never experienced thus far. And now that you're in that role and you have a little bit of experience in that realm, like you're past your first week in the office, you start to learn how the puzzle pieces fall into place, and that's really where I think that this episode gets its name from. So I think that's great. I think that's really interesting. The titles have been spot on so far, and I just want to really, as we go through the course of the season, I just want to keep bringing those up. Like, the titles have a deliberate meaning in this, and we should always focus on that as we're going about through here. So I have many notes for this episode. Of course, I loved it, so we're just going to kind of word bomb it throughout the course of this, and kind of see where things stick that I've really enjoyed as we're going through here. So I just loved how the episode starts with the familiar images of Jabba's palace. I love that, like, the opening door, that big gateway that just kind of stands up, and you just see a little bit of light, and it's this long walkway from the door to where like the tributary area, I guess you would call it, is. Um, I just love it. It reminds me of the Return of the Jedi. I always like how, when 3PO and R2 first get into Jabba's palace, that they have this long walk ahead of them, and it's like you're going into the unknown. You're going into the unknown here. It's just really really interesting, and I love how that just evokes that memory for me. I loved how there was the line of Ichuta from the Order of the Nightwind Assassin. I immediately responded with "How rude," as C3PO does in The Empire Strikes Back when he hears that phrase, and I just love that fun little callback there. Pretty cool. So there was that Order of the Nightwind Assassin, and I frankly really love that quip from Fennec when they say that she's just paying. They're just paying for the name. Like that's a funny back at you, especially since Fennec is one of the most deadly assassins across the galaxy. So it seems like she had a vendetta against them a little bit, but I also loved how they just like had this immediate callback again to Return of the Jedi with the Rancor sequence. I just loved how that scene really played out. I loved how 8D8, voiced by Matt Berry, just really went straight. What we do in the shadows with this exchange here. And honestly, when they were like, the Rancor, tell that to the Rancor, basically, right? And he goes down there the same way Luke does in Episode 6. When the gate opens up, I actually had a moment in my mind where I questioned if maybe the Rancor was still alive, and I thought that would have been potentially really cool to see how they would have done that in the volume. But evidently, he died. He died. So there was a little hope for me that the Rancor was still kicking, but evidently not. So then it showed Boba going to get some answers, as we now learn that the Order of the Nightwind person was announced that the mayor's office was the one that hired him. And I just love the runaround that Boba got at the mayor's office when the clerk is like, you don't have an appointment on the schedule, Boba. I don't see your name here. As someone who is studying public administration personally on the side, I just found that personally to be very hilarious. So it's just a little bit of real world interjection into that. And I really enjoyed seeing the Major Domo again for the mayor's office. I thought that was I had a feeling he would return. I really appreciated his interaction in the first episode when he was trying to get a little tribute for the mayor. I know I'm in the minority on that one. I've seen the discourse on the internet. I am not going to apologize for liking that sequence whatsoever. I'm a big fan of awkward conversations and the comedic draws that can come from that. So be it, America. And, we get a little bit of that interaction with the mayor, Mok Shaiz, and just a little bit of the back and forth between him and Boba. Boba's, of course, trying to assert his dominance in this region. He wants to earn that respect from people. He's telling them, "You serve at my will, and as long as I deem it." And then the mayor says this great line back to him that running a family is more complicated than bounty hunting. And I guess does Boba have to learn that running this criminal underworld is basically like running a family? Bounty hunting, you're on your own, right? You serve yourself. You're the lone gunman for hire. You get the job, you do it, you're done. You go to your next job, right? It's definitely more complicated. Even though there's the great line in The Mandalorian where they say bounty hunting is a complicated profession. So it's just interesting to see that a dual play on that line, basically, on how complicated things actually are, and it makes you ponder: is bounty hunting more complicated than running a family? I would probably say not. Again, I listed the reason why I would say that running a family is definitely more complicated because you're taking others' considerations into account. But I would never have thought that running a criminal underworld is like running a family. So I'm interested to see how that line sticks and plays out as the series goes on. Of course, Boba then is told to go see Madame Garsa Flip, and she said that she announces that the twins have laid claim to Jabba's lands and bequest. and then you hear the lone drum beating in the distance, and there's some great sound editing there. Really appreciated that. That was really well done on the Skywalker sound team. As you can just hear this little like in the background, this like dun 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 dun, and it just gets louder as they approach. And I thought, ooh, with the twins, how's this gonna look? Right, we're gonna learn a bit about culture here in live action. We're gonna we saw two Huts. There's Hut twins. It's so Godfather-esque. I loved how they're brought on their litter. They've been talking about this for the last two episodes. That Boba walks on his 2 feet, whereas the Huts do not. Obviously, they are brought in on this little escort thing, and frankly, the Huts look fantastic. I think they are. The CG is very well done. Kudos to them. This scene was breathtaking. The the power play that has taken place between these groups is so Godfather-esque. And I just really am interested to see how this plays out. How they don't want any bloodshed. At least they don't want bloodshed on their hands. Um, so I just will be very interested. And spoiler alert, everyone, it's too late now. We're so deep into it now, but I loved the reveal of Black Chrysanthemum. It is a great connection to other Star Wars canon. I would have never thought in a million years that Black Chrysanthemum would have appeared in Star Wars live action one way or another. For those at home, this is a character, if you're unaware, was developed for the Star Wars Marvel comic line. He was big in the underground bounty. He's a Wookiee bounty hunter basically, and he's very strong and powerful. And I hope that Boba and him might clash. I hope that's not just like a one-off look here and there. But it is. I'm very excited to see what happens here. But Boba, at the end of the day, is laying claim to to Tatooine. He's putting his foot in the sand. He's saying, "This is my land. I've killed Bib Fortuna. I did not work for Bib Fortuna. I killed him. I'm taking. This is my land. There's nothing you can do about it." And there's going to be a war coming. I can see it right now. There's going to be some big action sequences. Not the Jabba, but the Huts. The twins are not going to go quietly into the night. They are going to send some people out to take care of business. And Boba right now has an army of like 4. So he's going to need to muscle up. And I hope that maybe the Tuscans will come to his aid. If I can speculate a little bit here, I'd imagine that they're showing these flashback sequences so much in order to also give credence to when they could possibly show up in the show later on as like a group that is coming to the aid. Like he's going to need an army, right? He's going to need an underground force that is going to know the land, help. These are seeds that I think are being laid into the ground, that are being planted, that will rise up towards the end of the series. I'm very excited. I hope to see that. I mean, again, it could be wrong entirely, but that is the way of life. And I thought there was a really interesting line here after the Hutts say we don't want bloodshed, and we'll discuss this later, and they go away. Fennec Shan says to Boba, we would have to get permission if we want to kill them, and that was in reference to the Hutts. And I think that's just an interesting thing. Like, who would they get permission from in order to do that? Of course, Leia kills Jabba in episode 6, and she obviously didn't get permission for that. So I'm just really interested to see who would they need to get permission for that. There's just so much to explore here in terms of the canon aspects of this all, and I'm glad that we're getting some of these answers, even though we didn't know we had these questions long ago. So then the rest of the episode is basically just the flashbacks, right? Boba is rushed back to the Bacta tank, and again, that's something I actually wanted to bring up here. And it's something that me and my wife have been discussing is like, why is he so dependent on this Bacta? And I imagine if I could bring a real world instance into this, I mean, it's probably like some type of like painkiller or like opioid type deal, where like he might be addicted to the Bacta. I don't know how this works primarily in Star Wars, but it seems like he enjoys like, having these dreams, these flashback trances, reliving these experiences and healing, right? It sounds like he's been in a lot of pain. Clearly, you were eaten by a Sarlacc, you crawled your way out, You were dehydrated beyond belief. You've lived in the sands of Tatooine, an unforgiving landscape that ages people like no tomorrow, because of the outstanding heat and just the desert of it all. I think he might have some type of like dependency on that thing, which may play out in the future. Again, I could be entirely wrong on that, but it's something that I'm noticing here as we're going on. But I'm glad that the flashbacks are continuing. I do really like the dual stories aspect, that he's learning a lesson both in the past and how it's playing again in the future, and vice versa. Past and present are both affecting each other in this way, and I find that it's very interesting how time is not necessarily a linear thing where we can learn things in both ways. Um, and I think the show Arrow did this pretty well back in the first 5 or so seasons of that series, and I appreciate that they're kind of doing that through the Star Wars lens so far in the book of Boba Fett. So again, I really enjoyed seeing Boba learning the ways of the tribe. It remind me of these type of stories such as like Avatar, Dances with Wolves, The Last Samurai, Pocahontas, etc., where this outsider is a part of the clan, captured, and then learns the respect, and then learns the ways of the group, etc., etc. And also in that same vein, I love that the train heist was brought into the Star Wars realm. It's an interesting trope that of the Western genre that I'm so glad to see implemented through this Star Wars filter, of course. And it's one of my favorite moments in Solo too, is that train heist. So I'm just glad to see that whenever there's like a clear Western, um, or noir type influence, that there is some sort of train heist esque, and it's a great callback to those storytelling pieces that influenced Star Wars, the original Star Wars back in the day. But from these interactions, I just have so many questions about Tuscan culture that I never would have had a year ago, literally. I'm so glad that we get to see a different side to them, and I empathize more with them than I ever possibly could have through this series. And um, I just wanted to note how it's so fascinating how quickly Boba Fett was learn how to communicate with the Tuscans, even though it may be such a primitive. He might not be speaking full sentences in that kind of hand signal language that they're communicating with each other with, but it's very interesting. And there's some great spike sequences in this episode. Of course, there's the train heist sequence, but I just liked how that fight in the bar to get those speeders that Boba has, where he's like, "I'm just going to take a stick and a rifle, and I will get speeders, and we'll take down that train." That sequence really reminded me a lot of Terminator 2, Judgment Day. That intro scene where Arnold, aka the Terminator, goes to that biker bar in the beginning of the film, and he takes the bike after kicking some butt. Just a fun callback. I don't think there's really any connection to it whatsoever, but it popped in my mind that was something that could resemble that. And inside the bar was Cammy. So for those at home who may not be aware, that the female inside the bar is a girl named Cammy, and the subtitles confirm that is her name, which is a fun callback to a deleted scene from A New Hope, that Luke kind of had a crush on her when he went to Tashi Station. And also, if you've read the Last Jedi novelization, there's an alternate timeline dream that Luke has in the opening of the book, where he actually is married to Cammy, and it's like that alternate timeline of what if Luke rejected the call. What would his life have turned out to be? Probably would have been a moisture farmer, married to Cammy, like had a completely different life. The Empire still would be reigning, right? It just goes to show that every action has an opposite reaction, and I'm just interested to see that Cammy's back. So maybe, and that she's fully canonized too, in live action form instead of just being a deleted scene. So we'll see if that plays out any further into the future here. But when he returns back with those speeders, I found it really interesting that the Tuscans' first inclination was to destroy the speeders. And my theory is that maybe, they could learn to adapt as well to other forms of technology. It's that age-old mantra of not forgetting or losing yourself along the way, though, while still incorporating these new aspects of technology that will continue to grow and evolve. And, if you want to stay in the game in one way, shape, or form, you're going to have to adapt one way or another, but you can't lose yourself along the way. And one of the funniest instances in Star Wars that I have ever experienced in my life is seeing Boba Fett and Tamara Morrison acts his butt off in this scene. Is where he's riding he's showing the Tuscans how to ride a speeder, and of course they have no inclination on how to do this, and he uses the simile that it's like riding like a bantha, and just him shaking in that seat, riding with that big smile of his is absolutely hysterical. That is great moment, and they of course are. We then lead into the train heist sequence. But what does the defeating the train show? It shows that they have a claim to this land, and defeating the train not only shows dominance, but the fact that they grant mercy at the end is how they get respect, and that's how they don't come back, or maybe they do come back and they just defeat them again, right? But living to tell the tale is a powerful instance, right? Um, I'm interested to see how this plays out even further. But the Pikes really aren't understanding of the situation either. They feel they just have a claim to the land and territory for whatever reason. And I just think that the Pike design is just something interesting to bring up as well. They've had, so far at this point, they've really had 3 different designs. This is, of course, the first time we've seen them without a mask on, but there's a semblance of differences here. If you look at their Clone Wars design, what they look like in Solo, and of course the Book of Boba Fett, and obviously there's some time jumps between all these different iterations of them. But my headcanon, because I've seen some discourse on the internet about this, my headcanon is that there are some different species or races of Pikes. It is a large planet in a galaxy, of course. So that would be my kind of explanation for why there could be some semblances of differences in look. And I also wanted to note that the one Tusken leader who is training Boba in the art of fighting with the gaffi stick is just really spectacular, and basically taking down a whole section of the train single-handedly. It reminded me a lot of those like great Legolas action sequences in the Lord of the Rings. Just reminded me of that. Just a fun callback. And I really appreciated how that train driver droid just kind of bailed when Boba was like, "Stop this train now," and he was like, "Never. See ya. Bye." Popped right out the window. Great moment. And just something for canon. It looks like, based off of my understanding here, it seems that maybe the Pikes have reclaimed the spice mines of Kessel in the aftermath of the Empire. As you will see in Rebels, that the Empire has claim to the spice mines of Kessel, and they oversee it. So it seems like once the Empire has collapsed, the Pikes seem to have rejoined what was once theirs, or reclaimed what's once theirs. And once the train heist is completed, the train is stopped. The Boba has that really great interaction with the Pike leader, where he tells them that you'll get one black melon of milk to walk back to where you came from, and he's basically saying you've killed us, and he said your lives. Boba said to him, "Your lives are a gesture of our civility." It's a great line and a great delivery from Boba, and that's how they will earn the respect. They know. I mean, respect is in this case is earned. It's not necessarily a dominance thing at this point. They just want the respect that they're not going to come through their land, and they're not intentionally trying to kill them. Right? They're letting them leave with their lives. That wasn't their point, was to kill them all. If they would have wanted to kill them all, they would have just done it right then and there. But in many ways, both them, the Pikes, and the Tusken leader, gives him a little bit of a nod of respect there. Respect is earned, people. And I like how just like through Boba Fett's actions here, he's clearly becoming a different person and learning something along the way. We've learned through this canon instance that Tatooine once had oceans, and we got this interesting, weird, what have you sequence where this gift of this little lizard is given to Boba, and it shoots right up his nose, and it guides him all right. It's a trippy instance and trial similar to the cave on Dagobah. And I like how Boba goes on both a metaphorical journey as well as a physical journey, as we see him walking back to the camp later. But we see him walking to this tree amidst like the sea, the sand, what have you. And you see the eyes of the Jawas surrounded, probably because they ripped the armor off of him. You see the images of the Sarlacc and him in his armor, reflections of a young Boba and Kamino looking at himself in the reflection of the armor. And Boba is trapped by the tree, of course, and he breaks free. I think this really symbolizes him breaking free of his armor and from his past. He was so much defined by his armor as to derivative of his strength and his power and who he was as a person. And now he's clearly taking part on a new journey. Boba returns from this experience with a stick from that tree that he is using to forge his own gaffy stick, which I think is just so cool. I love the ritual of it all. And honestly, it reminds me so much of how younglings had to get their kyber crystals to craft their own lightsabers and that journey that they had to go on. I also think, by the way, of the gaffy stick and the addition of the black robes, that Boba is, I think, officially a member of this tribe. And it'll be interesting to see if he stays with this group. I don't know where the series goes from here in terms of these flashback instances. Does he stay with them? Does he go exploring the other tribes on Tatooine? I want to know what more he can learn or offer for them to learn. Does the series then go to where we see him appearing in The Mandalorian? But I think there needs to be some more time to pass before then, just thinking out loud in terms of the timeline for canon. But overall, everyone, those are some of the clips that I had from this episode. I think that is overall very beautiful. I love that this episode just takes its time and everything pays off, in my opinion. We learned so much about the culture of the Tusken Raiders and what Boba has undergone is such a transformative experience for him, going from this gun-for-hire bounty hunter into this honorful, respectful leader. The series is a true gift that keeps on giving, in my opinion, and the end dance sequence is such a poetic way to end the program. I am proud that this depth of level of storytelling is a part of the Star Wars universe now. That is all I had for this week, everyone. I hope that you all had just as much of a wonderful experience listening to my thoughts. I'm so excited to hear what you all have to think about this episode. This is a truly, truly groundbreaking series for Star Wars and what it can do for the expanded universe. So I want to bring you all into this conversation here. Connect with us via the social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. And we got so much more coming on the way here. There's a lot of great things coming. Episode 3 will come out next week. So I hope you all enjoy that. I look forward to connecting with you to geek out more about the Book of Boba Fett and all the great things that are coming down the pipeline from Star Wars. So may the Force be with you all. Have a great week. Take care, everyone.